Good morning to everyone. My name is Pierre Dandjinou. I'm Vice President, Stakeholder Engagement for ICANN, which stands for the Internet Cooperation for Assigned Names and Numbers. And I'm particularly in charge of Africa. I'm quite honored to be kind of moderating this panel, which is the first one. And the panel is about promoting digital Africa. Internet economy, which is a quite interesting subject, and which also reminds me that we are in transition. Actually, we are moving ahead in something that sometimes we don't really know exactly where we are heading to. But the point is, no, we are here. By the way, how many of you haven't gone to the Facebook today? You haven't? Oh, that's great.
I got notification.
Oh, you got notifications, okay. And how many of you kind of Google today? Oh, fair number, yeah. How about WhatsApp? Oh, that's one. And by the way, you know that none of those were developed in Africa, you know it. Now, of course, how many have got mobile phone? Of course, everyone. But the question is, how many of you have got two of them? Two mobiles. And three? Great. You know any places in Africa where we do manufacture the SIM cards within Africa? You understand the SIM cards, okay? Any idea whether we do manage or produce those in Africa? Yeah, I have no ideas. But our panelists will tell us, actually. I've got a very good panel here. You know, it's packed. They send me the bios, many lines, so, but I'm not going to go through them. I'll just give them 1 second or 2 seconds to quickly introduce themselves before we really start. So I'm going to start, okay, with my right, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My name is Jimson Olufuye. I'm the chair of the private sector-led organization called Africa ICT Alliance. I run a business, the CEO of Contemporary Consulting based in Abuja, build data centers, and we mitigate cyber issues and into capacity development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jimson. He's quite short. I knew him, but he told me I have a long CV, and he did it. Thank you. Yeah, Dawit.
I am Dawit Bekele. I am the director of the African Regional Bureau of the Internet Society. I think many of you know the Internet Society, which is a not-for-profit organization that works for the development of an open and inclusive, trustworthy internet.
Thank you, Dawit. Now we leave it to Gaël.
Hi, my name is Gaël Hernandez. I work with Packet Clearinghouse, PCH, you might know it. And we are a global nonprofit that provides operational support and security to critical internet infrastructure.
Great. Hafez?
Hi, my name is Hafez Ahmadi. I'm from Tunisia. I'm a former Microsoft manager for the Middle East. Today, I'm an independent consultant. My main focus is internet governance, and I'm a member of African AGF and the North African AGF.
Thank you very much, Hafez. As you see, we do have quite various panel here, panelists. And one of the things we thought we should do is tackle this digital economy in Africa in kind of 3 directions. One direction could be that we quickly see about the enabling environment of this digital economy, and that we also talk about how do you foster entrepreneurship and innovation, and finally tackle the SMEs and digital financing. So so many aspects, but we chose those three of them. And my panelists actually are going to take you through each of them. I would like to ask Dawit to actually start, the ball, because he represents ISOC, and ISOC has done a lot in kind of promoting, connectivity of the world, and especially in Africa. He's the director. So, Dawit, could you just take us through this quickly?
Thank you, Pierre. As many of you know, the Internet Society has been working on connecting the world for the last 25 years. But recently, we are trying to see the other side of the coin, which is what do we do with it, especially in Africa. We don't have connectivity just for the sake of having connectivity. We want it to solve some of our problems. So we are doing some studies around how we can use the internet for our development. The first one was on education. And just 2 weeks ago, we launched a paper which is promoting the African internet economy. That we launched it at the African Union Ministerial in Addis Ababa. And I think it is an interesting report that you would like to read. I have some copies outside, but just Google it and you'll find it. Okay, so what does that, so my presentation will be around that report. Next, please. Next. So the main, findings of the reports is that, well, something around a third of Africans are today connected to the internet. That the contribution of the internet to the African GDP is low, but growing, 1.1% of the GDP. But internet has and will have even more, even greater impact on economic growth for developing countries. Statistics that we often say that 10% increase of internet penetration generally helps increase GDP from 0.4 to 0.6. Some are saying up to 1.5. But what is even more interesting is the contribution of the internet for the traditional sectors. So by using the internet, the traditional sectors like financial services, education, health, retail, agriculture, and government can improve successful applications that we have all started to use. Pierre has mentioned many applications that we use that are not from Africa, but there are a few that are coming, like Jumia, which is I think in Nigeria and it's Kenya. Some applications like Ben in Ghana, Twiga Foods and ICANN in Kenya. Well, there are some applications that are coming, and these are increasing. They are produced, developed, deployed, owned by Africans, which is good. On the other hand, there are some challenges. E-commerce business for the Middle East and Africa is just 1%. So 1% of e-commerce companies are from this region. However, which is quite surprising, Middle East and African they buy on the internet. 7% of worldwide e-commerce users are buyers, are from this region, which shows that we are buying from outside. We are just consumers and not really producers. And 2 in 5 businesses only use email. I think it's a mistake here. And 1 in 3 businesses only have websites. Other challenges, the development of the internet is uneven. When I say 30% internet penetration, there are countries where there is only 2% or less internet penetration. Others that are doing rather well compared even to the world average. Contribution to the economy is low, 1.1%, and for developed countries it's 3.6%. Okay, I think I have repeated some things here. Roadblocks. Well, I think this is next, please. Next. Yeah, you can go next. Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, the screens in front of me don't work, so I don't see very well what's happening there. Okay, roadblocks. I think this is the most important part of the presentation. We want to see in the coming years many online businesses coming from Africa. We want the next Facebooks and Googles to come from Africa. I do believe that we have very strong young people. We always say that it is a young continent, which is an advantage. However, we have to make sure that we give them all the opportunities so that they succeed. So we want many businesses to come. What are the major challenges? First, we need to have a good business environment, because the businesses that we want online are just businesses. So if registering a business is a big hassle, it is a big hassle for online businesses as well. If you see all the indexes by the World Bank or others, the Economist Intelligence Report, Africa is very low in the index. I think in the first 50 business-friendly countries, there is not a single African country. The only country that is rather good is Rwanda, but still it is, I think, 50-something. So this is a problem. We have to improve the business environment. And then the online business environment. For online, to operate an online business, there are a few things that need to be, to happen. The first thing, of course, is connectivity. We said that we have more and more connectivity, but we need to have reliable connectivity. We need to be sure that we will have connectivity 24 hours a day. It's not, sometimes we don't have connectivity because of power outage, and unfortunately, we don't have connectivity because of the increasing number of internet shutdowns. We need to have, some of the things that are critical to develop online businesses, such as, skilled manpower, etc. And third, we need to have an environment for startups to flourish. The reason why we have, the Silicon Valley today is because it was an environment that offers, first, highly skilled university graduates. Second, in an environment that is open for innovation, that does not inhibit innovation. Third, that understand that small businesses, small startups will not always stay small, and that brings opportunity to the country, and invest on those small startups. But if I take just this point, in most African countries, the investment incentives are mostly for big companies. I know in my own country, to have some of the advantages, you have to have a minimum of $500,000 in order to get some of the incentives from the government. That is not an incentive for startups. Therefore, I think we have to believe in our youth. We have to believe in the possibility of having the next big companies coming from Africa. So to conclude, I would say that we have a nascent African economy. We cannot say that African internet economy, I'm sorry. We cannot say that we don't have an internet economy. It is coming, and it is coming in some countries. There are many opportunities. We already see them. There are already a few millionaires that are coming in this sector. I think my friend was mentioning the other day that in Nigeria, the internet economy is really big. It is, and it is growing. It is already here. There are some challenges, and I think all of us, all stakeholders will have to work on those challenges, and we'll see that there will be some countries that will emerge, that will transform their economy, and in fact, extract themselves from the state of developing country into a developed country, like the Asian dragons did some decades ago, thanks to this technology. But it is clear from the direction that we see, there will be some countries that will not see the opportunity or will keep the barriers, like not providing connectivity to their citizens, restricting innovation, and these countries will lose that opportunity, and unfortunately, it will not be something that will come back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dawit, for this overview. Thank you. And of course, you said it, some will emerge. That's what you are saying. Okay. And one of the
some ideas on why at PCH we believe that internet infrastructure is an enabler and is an important part of the digital economy. Next, please. So I've used this diagram to show you different layers and the whole ecosystem of what we call digital economy. On the top, you can see digital enabled services for consumers, for businesses, and other businesses enablers. They all make use of internet infrastructure at some degree, and housing and hosting. They live somewhere on a data center somewhere. Underneath, there are networks, backbone networks, access networks, and then the devices we all use, phones, tablets, TVs, IoT things. So in this whole ecosystem, we use a lot of these digital enabled services that make use by themselves on the internet infrastructure, and the stability of the internet infrastructure is somehow an enabler for this to happen. Next, if we quantify and we look at the revenues or the economic value of these the online service sector, in some economies that are putting a lot of effort in developing these, we can see that is up to 10 times the value of the digital infrastructure sector. So even if the digital infrastructure, and we're talking about networks, transit providers, co-location and hosting, has revenues and incomes and employs people, what we can see here in this particular example is that e-commerce, business to consumers, internet advertising, software as a service, online media, CDNs, online gaming, all of those can be much larger. So we want a good digital infrastructure so we can, on top of that, develop all these services. Next, please. So if we go a little bit down and we look into what does that mean, we need obviously service providers, and you know them. That's the one that you or your business uses to connect to the internet. We need exchange points, and we need that to facilitate network interconnection, and they are going to be able to exchange traffic to each other. Generally, they won't charge them because they understand that there's a value in exchanging my traffic with his traffic and his traffic. And those exchanges, we're going to look at them a little bit later on. It's important to have transit providers who are networks that are going to aggregate traffic at the core of the internet, and they're going to connect a smaller of these service providers. You have to think that some of the content might need to travel for a long time. So it is important that they're there. And the domain name system, some of you probably are very familiar with it. We all use it without knowing it, but instead of remembering an IP address, we remember domains, which is a business on itself. That is another very fundamental part of the internet infrastructure. Next, please. Why are there enabled? And I mentioned it somehow. Last mile connectivity, access to citizens, governments, and businesses. Internet exchanges decrease the cost of running a network. They improve the performance and make the networks more redundant. They also develop a peering culture and a community. They develop skills. They develop the knowledge economy. Anyway, transit providers, they transport long distance traffic from A to B, and the domain name maintain a unique namespace, and we use human readable domain names. Next, please. How does that work? Well, a service provider needs to interconnect the users and content with the rest of the world. But without an internet exchange, for instance, all traffic will use existing routes. Roads that were built years ago and that could use some paths that were built. And some of these paths might go to remote hubs that are farther away overseas. This will also happen to the DNS queries. So DNS queries that you're doing here that should be resolved locally to some of the services that you have, to your bank, to your newspaper, they might have to leave and come back. And this is bad because that brings instability and unreliability when you could have all these questions being answered locally. So when service providers agree to build an IXP on a neutral location, what happens is that they reduce their costs, they run the network more efficiently. That helps to have some of these critical DNS services run into the country. And as the IXPs become attractive, some transit providers say, well, there are business for me here. So I can come, provide my service, and then extend my network. And my business is basically take bits from one place and put it to the other, and then extend my network. So I'm going to see, I'm going to show you some examples of transit providers that are building out their network in Africa. They're going thousands of kilometers, and they're keeping traffic, intra-continent traffic within the continent. Next, please. This is an overview of internet exchanges worldwide. Darker blue means more exchanges. Lighter blue means that there is at least one. There are 44 internet exchange points in the African continent. I don't know if some of you were at the session we had before the break, but my colleague Nishal and Haitham from the Cairo Exchange explained how these things work, why they're important. So I'm not going to, I'm going to extend myself, but I would say that there are 44 exchange points active on the African continent. Next, please. All countries, we have to, you know, it's very good news. All countries have exchanges except a few ones. There's still some things to do, but all of them have, which means that the cost of interconnecting networks, local networks within the country is possible, and it becomes cheap. The good news as well is that we've noticed that when the community takes ownership and participates, when service providers are part of the exchange, it increases the chances of the exchange to work well, because it increases openness, neutrality, and trust among participants. Well, you can relate that to anything we do in life. If we know each other and we spend time, we trust each other, things work much better. There are major hubs in South Africa, in Nigeria, in terms of active exchanges, and as you can see, the north of Africa is still uses existing roads and does not have many, but this is something that is we've discussed that on the North African IGF, and this is something work in progress. Next, please. The domestic traffic growth is real. This is an example of the exchange in Rwanda. Our colleagues from ICTA have been working very hard in making this exchange a success by trying to work with the community and making the case for networks to join. This is in 5 years, they've managed to increase the traffic up almost 20-fold. This is positive, there's still work to do, but I want to show that things are happening, and this is very good news for all of us. Next, please. I talked about transit providers. There is an increasing choice of transit providers within the continent. They connect major cities, particularly in East and Southern Africa. You have there, it's a figure of an actual service provider, and you can see how far his network goes, which basically means that he has the opportunity to route less often. And this is good news. And this is good news because there are more exchanges, and transit providers are taking the task of connecting and providing that service and moving those bits from one to the other. Next, please. Finally, because I'm already on 10 minutes, why is the domain name system important? Every time you do anything on the internet, there is a number of DNS lookups. You need to translate this domain name into an IP address. If you're not hosting some of these elements within your country, these queries can take a long time, they can get lost, and this is important. If we want, and I'm coming back mentally to the image that I saw at the beginning, if we want these business to consumers, all these digital enabled services to be running here, to have startups working on this, you need to get these fixed. You need to have different instances of critical services within your country. They generally work very well with exchange points. Next, please. There are about 15 countries that, next, please. there's still about 15 countries that do not have, don't host DNS root service instances, but otherwise you can see that the list here is very rich. Most of the countries do have at least one root server, and this is important for this process that I was mentioning of DNS lookup. So there is also very good news. There's still things to do, but we're going on the right track. Next, please. Conclusions. Next, please. Sorry. The value. So going back into the first idea, why is digital infrastructure an enabler and why is it important? Because the value of the services that you're building on top of that can be several times the value of the digital infrastructure. So for every Egyptian pound, for every Kenyan shilling that we're putting into infrastructure and we're putting it well, we can create all these services, all these new entrepreneurs, universities can put their content online, and that is the digital economy by itself. Internet exchanges reduce operational cost of networks, and a community involvement is key. Critical DNS services should be located in country to increase the stability, resiliency, and security of name resolution. And IXPs often host these services because they're of equal value to all the participants. So, and transit providers are starting to use IXP more to route more traffic within the continent instead of going overseas. So this is the takeaway. I'm very happy to answer questions, myself and my colleague Nishal, who's at the back there. And well, any questions you have, we'll be happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gaël, especially for insisting on those enablers. And it's quite good experience. Of course, one of the questions we might have is to know exactly what's the volume of cross-border traffic, for instance, in Africa. But we'll come back to that one later. The good news is that, as you said, okay, we are moving ahead. Things are happening actually. And those things are happening to certainly enable the digital economy and the business as well. AFICTA is going to take us to something which is quite important, surrounding innovation and software development. So please, AFICTA, for 10 minutes, please.
Merci, Pierre. Thank you very much. I don't have presentation, but I will try to stick with the 10 minutes. I have some points and some idea. In fact, several African countries have made a significant progress in creating the internet sector, making reforms, as well as broadband availability. And no one can deny today the fact that internet is a critical enabler for economic growth. However, as Dawit said, we still have one-digit percentage contributing at the GDP level. And we all know that we still have many challenges and issues to make and fostering the economic, the internet economic in Africa. I would like to give you some practical examples that I have experienced during my work with an international corporation, which is Microsoft. In fact, this is a local software economy initiative, an initiative with the spirit of what we can name the quick wins for different generations and youth, best practices to share it between youth, startups, and new entrepreneurs in Africa. It is an initiative that is based essentially on 3 pillars. These initiatives, I have experienced it during my job as innovative platform and tools evangelizing technology for MENA region, North African and Middle East. This initiative is in partnership with the industrial side like Microsoft. We can do it, in fact, with Google or whatever other corporations in the internet sector, and civil society, government, essentially, to create what we can name collaborative innovation centers. Dawit has spoken about the virtual excellence centers, which is also a very important engine when it comes to fostering youth engagement in economy. This center is an effective center which should be created in partnership with the government and this big corporation of the internet industry in the world. In fact, this collaborative innovation center initiatives is essentially based on what we can name the local software economy. And it is based on three main pillars. The first pillar is for capacity building and training programs, which ends up with the certifications. So we engage fresh graduated students. We engage youth people to train them with the latest technology, to train them with mobile technology. We introduce for them the emerging technology like Internet of Things, like the cloud computing, like the international exchange money, like Bitcoins, etc. And we urge them to get certified because we believe that certification will open for them borders and go beyond their countries, as we are speaking about Africa. The next pillar is essentially based on entrepreneurship programs and incubation. So how can we help them to be future managers? We give them trainings on the entrepreneurship. We give them trainings on leading their teams, how to create the team spirit, how they can motivate the different people, how can they manage a new startup and make it a successful startup for the future. Because we have experienced that one piece is missing in the puzzle of the startups creation. We have people, we have skills. At some extent, we have budget money to help them with financing. Buzz and boom of this software application for these smart objects. So we need in somehow prepare these youth generations to get empowered with this latest technology if we speak about Internet of Things or we speak about cloud computing, etc. And the last pillar is essentially based on how we can help them with financing. How can we get in touch and create a relationship with funds, banking institution, and to help these new startups with this financing opportunities to create their startups and to start working on that. So this model of the local software economy in somehow, at some extent, can be a global African, not local, but a global African economy. If we get inspired from these big corporations like Microsoft, like Google. Google today is promoting what we can name innovation centers in many countries in partnership with different institutions and with even governments to create innovation centers. And these innovation centers can empower the youth with the latest technology in a very high level technological environment. It can help them with these kind of initiatives that it was thought done, and it can help, I mean, Africans to network with these innovation centers to promote technology and to create the latest software applications for the latest, I mean, innovations in the technology side. So I do remember that between 2009 and 2012, we have launched a big program based on the fact based with the fact that we need to reach and maximize the outreach for the youth in the region. And we get inspired with the fact that we should how to engage this youth population in creating a network economy with these small softwares, with these small quick wins, is based on the fact, go where they go and speak their languages. We need to go this youth, where they go, and we have to speak their language to inspire them and to encourage them to create and to be the future entrepreneurs for Africa. We all believe, from North Africa to South Africa, that Africa is one of the biggest promoting market, and we need to engage our youth generation to invest in the technology and to create these small wins in Africa and promote the economy. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hafed, for this presentation. I hope Microsoft is one of the sponsors of this forum. Because you've been talking about Microsoft, which is fine, and I hope that the organizers, will think about it and have you pay back, for this. Anyway, it's another issue. But thank you very much, for insisting on another key enabler, you see, which is about capacity building and how we really nurture, this. We provide this ecosystem for entrepreneurship to thrive, and that's quite good. In an interview with CNN, I think 1 or 2 years ago, one of the things I said was that, well, when you visit African countries, you visit the hubs. We do have something like 325, different sort of hubs, everywhere in Africa. When you see the youth, the way they are really trying to move forward, the type of innovation they are having, applications, solving local issues, that maybe Africa might well be hatching, the next sort of Google, the next Facebook, whatever, from Africa. This is something I said, it was a challenge, and I hope that the youth will not prove me wrong in the coming future. Now we are going to expand our discussion and then talk briefly about, the SMEs, the whole entrepreneurship, environment as well. And Jimson have been one of those, pushing for this African sort of tapping into the digital economy as an association. He's going to also share his ideas in 10 minutes before we open over to you. So Jimson, you may lecture, you may go over there, but you only have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be speaking on enabling digital Africa and giving business a real boost. I do have some slides, but there's a glitch with the slides. But what I'm presenting now is available in PDF, so we can always download on the organizer's website. Enabling an inclusive digital transformation of Africa, of Africa and giving business a real boost is a factor of pervasive quality internet access for service delivery across all sectors, notably governance and the running of government processes in Africa. I'm saying this from my experience as an SME. Government is the biggest spender in Africa, and the efficiency it brings about in the performance of this function has the potential of engendering true transformation of African economy and the unleashing of the internet economy all over Africa. It's when this is done that the real boost can happen. I would like to use the Nigerian government as a case in point. Since the return to civil rule in 1999, a lot has changed structurally in terms of how policies and laws are made. And that has transformed economic performance. In terms of multi-stakeholder approach, in terms of the laws enacted, and recently the government signed to law 3 executive orders on ease of doing business. And these orders have really moved Nigeria up 24 points in the World Bank ease of doing business index. But still, in Nigeria, we're operating, I can say, at 1/5 of our potential. Meeting the WSIS targets enables digital Africa. As a derivative of WSIS outcome itself, WSIS is World Summit on Information Society. AFICTA believes that when actors buy into WSIS targets, the result will be a digital Africa with a robust economy. We know all those WSIS targets like connecting villages, connecting communities, schools, and what have you. My colleagues have really focused a lot on enabling a good environment for business to thrive. Indeed, when we have good enabling environment as business will just take off naturally. Business will take off. Now, these are some points I've noted that could really foster that enabling environment business need. Number one, internal collaboration within its structures and agencies. That is the structure of government. When a house is divided within itself, it can hardly stand. So when government agencies are not collaborating among themselves and instead are working at cross purposes, they inadvertently undermine business environment. Government agencies can collaborate through MOUs so that they can firm up digital strategy effectively and also implement in a very systematic fashion. And also the Nigerian government, we have an MOU signed, and with that, working closely. And I also want to recognize the transforming work of AU. AU is also collaborating with us, and that is a great stimuli for business. These are great stimuli for business. Another point is support for result-oriented incubation centers through granting and provision of subventions. Incubation centers go a long way in growing businesses. The setting up of an innovation fund with established budget line and or tied to steady funding inflow comparable to the US National Science Foundation will go a long way to engender innovation and entrepreneurship in Africa. See, most of the time, most of these incubation centers, they're short of funds, and with that funding is cut off. The activities are cut off. So it has to be a continuum. So there should be creative means of funding these centers. Well, there are other important enablers of internet economy in Africa. My colleagues mentioned a lot about infrastructure. Infrastructure indeed is the cornerstone. Ensuring that the media of connectivity are available is the focus of infrastructure, as we know. Through fiber, spectrum, satellite link, internet. Experience has been provided for more than 30% of Africa, but more still need to be done. As many connected to the internet are in the urban areas with old narrowband technologies. Well, average Africa is 30%, but Nigeria is close to 60% in terms of connectivity. And broadband is heading towards 30% as well. The government has targeted 30% broadband penetration by 2018, but I think we might be there already because data has fallen seriously. The cost of data has fallen seriously, and even persons are able to afford some data. Well, a diverse retinue of new solutions and strategy may need to be engaged to connect a large percentage of the unconnected. Such new approach to connect a dispersed population is the use of TV white spaces. We need government collaboration in Africa for this. Perhaps with a speedy transition from analog to digital spectrum, then it will be easier to free up those the TV white spaces for broadband and internet connection to large dispersed areas. The importance of power, electricity infrastructure that is being available is also very, very important. The thermal power gap can be readily overcome with solar alternatives. In fact, a number of our data centers we use solar power. We're proving that this is possible. We've implemented it for years. We have centers have been running 24/7. Another point is affordability. Until broadband is 5% of monthly income, according to UN benchmark, the digital Africa of our dream may remain elusive. Though many countries in Africa, notably Egypt and Nigeria, yes, have made the Alliance for Affordable Internet 1 to 2 index. 1 to 2 index is saying that 1 gig of internet data for just 2% of monthly income. But generally, the cost of a monthly broadband access is still high across Africa. That is uninterrupted internet broadband access. So what can be done to enhance affordability of access? What can be done include removing multiple taxation, reducing taxes, reducing spectrum license fees, using Universal Service Provision Fund more effectively to reduce deployment costs and increasing availability via competition. Creating more internet exchange points and removing roaming charges throughout Africa will enhance affordability to boost revenue and increase business opportunity. We really commend the efforts of the ECA and of course the South African Development Commission and also the ECOWAS on their move for one network across Africa. This will help business a great deal because many of us want to be doing business across nations in Africa, and roaming issue has been a challenge, the tariff connected with that. Indeed, what happened in East Africa, the World Bank actually did a measurement and said it boosted business by 950%. So this is really commendable. And also worthy of commendation is Nigeria's regulator, Nigeria Communication Commission, as refusal to approve requests by the telecom operators to increase tariffs. Instead of increasing tariffs, we believe that operators should evolve strategies to boost traffic and reduce cost of operation. Some of them are doing it already. Another point I would like to mention is skills impartation. Since building a digital Africa is not a sprint, but rather a marathon, basic IT know-how and skills should be taught in schools across all levels. Interestingly, the Lagos State government in Nigeria, which is the richest state in Nigeria, last month inaugurated 2 coding centers under the Code Lagos initiative. Students, and they plan 94 others. They will soon be inaugurated. 94 other centers in schools across Lagos State. So just be coding. The other point is payment method. When payment is made easy for customers, the tendency is that there will be repeated businesses and transactions. The convenience of digital payment platform boosts business, which is a friction removed with respect to payment for goods and services. Little wonder why M-Pesa, that's been mentioned earlier, contributes up to 50% to Kenya's gross domestic product. And in other words, I've also mentioned that even in Nigeria, ICT is contributing over 10%. In fact, by last measurement, 12% of Nigeria's GDP is from ICT. Then the last point I have here is self-development and resiliency. Truly, everyone cannot be an entrepreneur in the internet economy, yes. However, whoever wants to be an entrepreneur must invest heavily in self-development, acquiring necessary know-how to remain competitive and at the cutting edge of his or product and services. My colleagues have mentioned that you need to have high skills. If I did not have skills, I won't dive into business about 25 years ago. I started with coding, designing software for clients, and that's how we grew. So want to be an entrepreneur, you need to have some skills, and that's how it is all over the world. Very importantly, to be a successful entrepreneur must be resilient and being able to stand in the midst of failures and discouragement along the way. Entrepreneurs should have marketable skill to thrive. Financing is important, but you can create one with your skill set. Yeah, along the line, we had some big projects. We don't just borrow money. In fact, our policy is that we don't go into debt. But we borrow money when we have some big investment to do, or big job to do, or deliveries to make, and we do it. And for the benefit of those going to business, the banks are there to support, really. We have a lot of intervention funding in Nigeria today, but the packaging is very important. You need to meet those people that will help package your proposal. There is a process. Once the proposal is well packaged, then it will be considered. CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, have funding to support this, and many others as well. In conclusion, when every actor in the digital transformation spectrum steps up and play their respective role, friction, according to ICANN sponsor study by the Boston Consulting Group, will be minimized, giving countries up to 3% boost in GDP, and business a real boost for a truly digital Africa. Well, on that part, let us continue the conversation. Thank you very much.
So please keep your questions short. Eventually, if you have any panelists you want to address, the question would be great. Yeah. So now we're just starting from here, and then we'll all be having a chance to actually talk. So please go ahead. The gentleman over there, and then I will be crossing. So
thank you, Chair. I have the microphone.
Who was? This is a coup d'etat.
that is matter.
Oh, that's a coup d'etat. They say it's a matter from Uganda, so for that reason we have to let her go. She's overruling now that's fine. ladies first, we say. Okay, go ahead, please, and then we'll move on.
Okay, we have discussed digital finance. I didn't get enough about cryptocurrencies though, and the Ponzi schemes that come with cryptocurrencies, because these have led to loss of income, especially for people who are unaware of that. Can we give more detail on this, and maybe how one can benefit from cryptocurrencies and protect themselves against loss?
Thank you. For that matter, it could have been blockchain, but we'll come back to that one. Okay, let me start then from this. Now you'll be all having a chance to talk. So yeah, go ahead, my good friend from...
Thank you very much. First of all, the lady who went first, I just want to mention to her that there are studies happening at the ITU on that particular issue. If you want to follow it up, you can get that. But let me just, first of all, thank you all. That was an amazing outcome from you, and we enjoyed that. Just a couple of comments and maybe a question. I enjoyed all the ideas you put forward, but my comment is we are moving. There's no issue about that. We're moving forward. The only problem is the world is moving faster. Now, if you want to catch up, then we have to either move the same speed or even faster if you have to catch up. And I will just mention a couple of numbers, because we're talking about economy, so without numbers, it won't make sense. Now, 11 November, Alibaba sold one day $25 billion worth of commodity. This is just one company one day. And 50% of our people in Africa in 2025, they will be accessing the internet. This is another 8 years to go. So if we're lucky, we might be still around. And then the value of the internet economy will be 75 billion. Now, my friends, let's reflect on these numbers. If one company can today sell 25 billion a day, and we have to wait until 2025 to sell 75, we've got a problem, we've got a challenge. And the talk we are having here will not solve that problem. We need to get a bit more serious. Now, the numbers you mentioned about the GDPs and the internet economy, they're not exciting. Why? Because our continent, the IGDP, that's the language used. We have to use the terminology that's relevant to the discussion. What I'm hearing is the 2060 language. We moved on. So if we really want to look at the IGDP for Africa, it is 1.1 of the GDP of the whole continent. Now that's compared to other countries where half to the developing countries and a third to the developing countries. Again, that's appalling. That's way too far behind. So what I'm really saying is, I'm getting very excited about this. The reason is, with all the knowledge we have, we're not putting the effort to where it should be. And I think where we should be putting into is educating our young people so that they learn the necessary technology so that they can do the right thing. Now, while I'm on that topic, I just want to mention a couple of numbers. 70% of the 165,000 students from India who study in the US are doing science, engineering, and maths. How many African students are studying when you put together Europe, US, and all of that? 40,000 plus 30,000 if you look into 2028, when China gives us some scholarships. My friends, I rest my case. We've got a lot of work ahead. We better move faster. Thank you.
Thank you. He didn't introduce himself. Yes, he was former minister of ICT in Somalia, but doing many things out there from Australia. That's why he can also see that we are moving, but it's a bit slow, and I kind of agree with him. We move this side from there. Who else? Oh, please, Ishan, please.
Well, I want to start off by really thanking you for this great panel. I personally have been anticipating this panel for some time, and it really delivered a great discussion in the room, and I can sense this from the number of requests for the microphone. So to make use of this time, I really want to pick a point from Gaël's presentation. I think there is an eye-opener for us all that the infrastructure challenge is changing its nature. We need to change our mindset about it, especially for the regional approaches. If we are designing projects that address infrastructure, we need a new paradigm, and it's not always easy to move from one paradigm to another. So I'm glad Mukhtar is in the room, and I have seen him taking notes seriously, so I'm glad to see this taken care of. The second point is e-commerce, and it has been a buzzing word again in the recent months. I think it's important for African countries that when we consider e-commerce, that we also rethink our strategies. It's no more the global market feeding Africa with e-commerce. It's a two-directional channel, and there's a lot of innovation coming from Africa because it's not anymore the classical products. It's innovation that is driving the market, and there's a lot of that coming from Africa. So it is important that we all note these changes in the atmosphere of the digital market. One point I want to also come to is education. How should we rethink education in ICT? I'm glad to see the report from ISOC distributed outside on this, and I wish to acknowledge also ISOC's work in specialized trainings in Africa and other parts of the world. But I have to say that it's not enough. It's not enough to have this coming on only from government, that we ask governments to provide education. It's not the classical model anymore. We need more efforts, especially from multinational companies. There are a lot of multinational companies working in Africa, and the responsibility of these multinationals in the host countries, in the African states, has not been moving at the same pace of the demand. So we need to address this more seriously. I'm glad Jimson also mentioned ease of doing business. It's important that we look at this in the new atmosphere that how business is moving now. It's not, again, it's moving from one model to a new one that is still taking shape. So how do we want to assess the ease of doing business? But all of these, I think it's important to note out of this discussion, we all need to move from one place to another. We need to open our eyes to a new reality and to rethink our classical paradigms. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those wise comments. We move again. Anyone here? No? Then we move. Mokhtar. Where's Mokhtar? Give Mokhtar his mic, please. No, you don't quickly do anything. You wait for me, and then you have your time. Please. Takes down nothing.
I like that. Thank you very much. I just wanted to comment quickly on what has been said by Mr. Bekele with regard to the roadblocks. He mentioned something about business environment to be favorable for digital economy. Well, I don't know if he meant by that probably the first step putting in place cybersecurity legislations and so on. The major roadblock, to my view, at this point of time is the African leadership in terms of understanding that the old way of doing things, to govern, to create wealth, is been moving quickly from tangible to intangibles, to network-centric, to firm-based network to network-centric, meaning it's not only about now today saying, oh, we need power, okay, let's build a power plant and build the network and have it. No, we need to understand that the citizen can today have talk to the digital platform to have
to be the producer and the consumer of power. This is when we understand that we are shifting, we are moving from those models of governing and doing business to the new model, then we have understood the digital economy, and from there we'll take appropriate measure. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you for those comments, and coming from Africa Union, and actually pointing to the leadership. There is something to be done there. Okay. We move on. I still need, if you have time to take the mic and then put your questions. I see no hands, comments. No, it's okay. Well, I believe that we do have a few questions there, many comments which are quite useful. So I'm going to give a chance to our panelists who certainly feel that they need to respond to any question. And yes, I saw that you really wanted to react, so please, yeah.
Well, it was originally your question on cross-border connectivity, and I just wanted to give an example to explain how this is already happening. So using some stats, for instance, from South Africa and from the Johannesburg Internet Exchange, 34% of the networks that are at JINX, they're from other African countries, which basically means that they've built infrastructure to go to South Africa because they believe that the content and peering there with other networks is more relevant rather than getting that content from their transit provider. And that figure is interesting, but I can tell you that 80%, for instance, of Angolan networks are visible in South Africa. So they understand that there's a value of that. So it is something that is already happening. I have time series, so we could see whether that is improving over time, and it is improving. I do agree that maybe the will require to be faster to catch up, but I think that we need to focus on what is feasible and what can be done, and try to identify how each of us
Thank you. I would like to react to what Mohammed said rightly, that we are not moving fast. Is true. We see some movement, but very far from what it should be. But I'm still optimistic because unlike maybe 10 years ago, we have the formula on how to go fast. We have seen it here in Africa. And I would like to mention at least one example where we have been successful, the mobile money. And in fact, Kenya is a very good example. We had a workshop on entrepreneurship in Kenya, and we invited Professor Ndemo, who was personal secretary of the Ministry of ICT, I think, when there was the big transformations of the ICT sector in Kenya. And we asked him, how, first of all, PESA, how did it happen? Second, how did you have, a major increase in, submarine cables in Kenya? And he said, first, is that we believed in our own resources. For example, for the submarine cables, I don't know, some of you might remember that everybody was saying in Africa we cannot afford to have submarine cables. So there was this easy cable that all of us will have to contribute to. It took, I don't know how many years to have all the finances from the World Bank, etc. And Kenya said, no, we cannot wait indefinitely for this to happen. And they brought their own operators. They sat down and said, okay, how can we bring, connect Kenya to the rest of the world? And they realized that by contributing, each of them, they can have their own cable. And this is what they did. And guess what? The next thing is that others were coming. And today there are, if I'm not wrong, at least 4 submarine cables arriving to Kenya. And from 2009 and 2017 that we are today, the Kenyan internet has completely changed. It's become very affordable, much, much better than it used to be. The other is for M-Pesa. M-Pesa, as you know, is the most successful mobile money application. And here again, when it started, they knew that it was a completely new area for everybody around the world. And rather than having the usual reflex of government to say, we don't know it, we ban it, they say, we don't know it, but it might be an opportunity. Let's let it operate, and then we'll find a way to regulate it. And that was really, he said, we took extraordinary risk. And that is what we should do. I don't think that we can be the innovators that we want to be in Africa unless, as a society, we take risks. And that is something that we have to learn. One last point, and I will stop. Hisham talked about education. I didn't talk a lot about our education paper a lot because it's not the session that is appropriate. But for those of you who are interested, you can look at the paper we produced. And there is considerable opportunity to transform our education. And it is to transform the society, because even for the internet economy to develop, we need highly educated people. And that cannot be done the traditional way. We have to overhaul our education, and the internet brings a lot of opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawit. I think there was a question about crypto money, blockchain, and all of those. And anyone want to quickly react to that?
I'm not a specialist, but maybe I will put her in contact with my colleague Verenga. You can show your hand. He is a specialist in crypto, well, in blockchain in general. Mining? So I think
is he mining?
Yes, he is.
Criminals are normally the first people to get into that space. So definitely they will take advantage of the crypto money and making all these Ponzi schemes. But the opportunities, I think, have been studied quite extensively, and I'll be happy to share some experiences there. But the quick advice I would give colleagues is that you may just need to spend a little bit of time to read around the appropriate schemes or appropriate investment opportunities in that space.
Thank you very much. Of course, there are so many things to talk about. I'm glad that you are taking this of the panel. I know ITU is working on that. We also have an African sort of association working on typically the blockchain, actually, not crypto money per se. With that, is there any other comments from my panelists quickly? It's going to be your closing words. Then because now we are blocking people for lunch now. Okay.
Yeah, what I would say is that we need to be very conscious of our peculiar environment. Africa is a peculiar environment, 54 countries, diverse languages, 5,000 languages, and a lot of frameworks to work with. So, but within that understanding, there are basic things we can do to really fast track, just as the first commenter mentioned. Africa is not doing badly, I would say that, because I think you are reading old statistics about GDP of Africa. It's moved beyond 1.1, it's above 2 trillion. Even though now we have huge potential to be reading 20 trillion, but we are on the right track. As we continue to do this, AU is engaging and all our countries have frameworks in place. I think that will surely be fast-tracked. 20 years ago or thereabouts, in the internet penetration index, Nigeria may be around 40 position. But today, now, is moved up so seriously in terms of penetration, 60% penetration, and broadband is moving on, and every day government is saying, what can we do? What can we do? Those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves continuously. And business will flourish naturally because people will want to make money anyway. So if the opportunity is there, then they will go for it, especially in Nigeria anyway.
Thank you, Jimson, for that. And with those words, I think we should just close and hand it over to Adil. And before that, I would like to thank you very much for your questions and comments. And then I think our panelists also deserve, your kind of, well, we need to recognize, the good thoughts, the good thinking that they brought to us. So please, let's clap for them. And then I'll hand it over to Adil for the next of our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre. I hope you enjoyed the session. I surely did. It was very informative. Pierre, thank you and the team for the job well done. We really enjoyed it. Please give them a round of applause. Now we break for lunch. We hope to come back at 2:30 for the session 2. We are going to talk about the social impact and labor impacts of the digital transformation at 2:30. Thank you.